Welcome back to my channel. This channel specializes in writing about epic tales and myths from around the world. Don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe to help me out. Today, we will dive into a story titled The Epic of Popol Vuh, the creation and heroic age of the Maya gods. Full mythological story. Chapter 1. The Void and the First Gods. Before the dawn of time, before the first light or breath of wind, there was nothing. No sky, no earth, no sun, no moon, no stars. Only an endless void, silent, vast, and still. The waters of the primordial sea lay motionless, their surface reflecting the darkness of eternity. There was no sound but the whisper of the abyss, no shape but the mist of potential. The world had not yet been born. The gods had not yet spoken its name. And yet, within that stillness, thought stirred. From the depth of the cosmic sea rose to presences, invisible, eternal, and pure. They were heart of heaven, Hunahpú, and heart of earth, Gukamats, twin essences of creation. Hunahpú was the lightning that would one day split the clouds, though no storm yet existed. Gukamats was the feathered serpent, gleaming with the colors of dawn that had not yet come. Their thoughts were one, for they existed in perfect unity. Let it be so, they whispered into the void. Let there be a world beneath the heavens, a place for life to dwell. Their words echoed through nothingness, and the silence shuddered. For in that moment, sound was born, the council of the creators. But thought alone could not shape existence. Hunahpú and Gukamats called forth the ancient ones, the grandmother and grandfather of creation, Xmuke and Xpiakok, wise spirits who dwelt in the folds of eternity. They were the keepers of destiny, the divine weavers of what would come to be. In the darkness they gathered, a council of four. Hunahpú spoke first, his voice like distant thunder. We must make a place for the children to walk, for the sun to shine, for the waters to flow. Yet the sea covers all things. Where shall earth rise? Gukamats, the serpent of light, coiled upon the waters, and answered, We shall speak the word, and by the word the world shall awaken. So they whispered together, weaving thoughts into power, and power into being. Their breath moved across the endless waters, and beneath their voice, the land began to stir. The birth of the earth from the surface of the sea rose the first mountains, black and gleaming, wet with the waters of eternity. Valleys formed between them, and from their cracks poured rivers and lakes. The earth took shape, soil, stone, and sand. The gods gazed upon their work, and for the first time they saw the horizon, a meeting of sea and sky. And Hunahpú said, It is good. The world has lifted its face to the heavens. Then Gukamats spread his serpent wings, scattering light across the waters, and that shimmer became the first dawn. Yet the heavens were still empty, and no voice rose in praise. The making of the sky. The creators then lifted their eyes above the earth. There must be a vault for the sky, they said, and stars to mark its height. Hunahpú struck the waters with his thunderbolt, and from the spray leaped the clouds. Gukamats breathed upon them, and they drifted upward, forming the roof of the world. In their union, sky and earth were divided, and the endless sea receded to its place. Lightning flashed, thunder rolled, and rain fell, the first storm, the first breath of life. From this union of heaven and earth, time began, the birth of light and life. But the gods looked upon their creation and found it silent. No creatures stirred in the forests. No birds filled the air with song. The world was still a dream without a voice. So the creators gathered once again in council. "The earth must speak," said Hurakan. "There must be guardians of the day and night," said Gukamats. "Let us make them." And with their breath they brought forth the first beings, the deer, the birds, the jaguars, and all the creatures that walk or crawl. They filled the forests and mountains with movement, the skies with fluttering wings. The gods said to them, "Speak our names. Praise us, your makers, for we have given you life." But the creatures cried out only in hoots, growls, and caws. They spoke no word of reverence. Hurakan frowned. "Their voices are without meaning. They cannot call to us. They do not remember who made them." So the gods decreed, "Let each creature keep its own language. Let them dwell apart in forest and plain, but they shall not rule the world." And thus, though the earth was alive, it still lacked one thing: a being who could think, who could speak, who could remember. The promise of humanity. The gods looked upon their creation and were pleased, yet restless. The mountains rise, the rivers flow, the animals walk, but none can speak our name. The world is beautiful, but silent. We must make beings of our own reflection, who can remember us, who can offer thanks. And so the promise was made that soon they would shape humanity, creatures of thought and spirit, to walk upon the earth and speak the names of the divine. But that time had not yet come. The creators gazed upon their work and withdrew into the sky, waiting for the next dawn, when their words would give birth to mankind. The silence before the dawn, and so the first age of the world ended. The sea murmured, the mountains glistened beneath the newborn sky, and the forests whispered with the voices of animals. But no song of praise yet rose to heaven. Above the earth, the gods watched. They waited. They dreamed of beings yet to come. The void had become a world, but the world was not yet complete. And in that silence, before the true dawn, the gods whispered, "We will try again." Chapter 2: The Shaping of Earth and Sky. When the silence of creation had settled, and the waters no longer roared with the voice of chaos, the creators gathered once more. The world below them was wide and young, a realm of mountains and rivers, clouds and light. Yet it lacked the harmony of order. The heavens hung vast and blue, but the stars were unborn. The winds swept endlessly, but there was no rhythm to their breath. The gods looked upon the newborn earth, and they saw that it needed shaping, for beauty alone was not balance. So, from the throne of the heavens, Hurakan, the heart of sky, lifted his hand, and the thunder rolled through the clouds. With him stood Gukamets, the feathered serpent, the council of the four divine powers. Hurakan's voice was like distant lightning as he spoke. "The earth lies open, but the order of its parts is yet unmade. The seas have no shore, the winds have no path, and the heavens lack their pillars. Let us bind the world together," Gukamats replied, his serpent body gleaming in the dim light of dawn. "Yes, let the sky be raised high above the waters. Let the earth have its limits, and let the stars be the eyes of the night." Then Xbalanqué, the grandmother of day, said, "Creation is not yet whole. We must weave time and season, so the world may breathe in rhythm, so that life may come and return, as the sea returns to the shore." Xbalanqué, the grandfather of dawn, nodded slowly. "Let there be balance between all things, the light and the shadow, the sea and the stone, the storm and the stillness. For without balance, even the heavens will fall." So it was agreed, the shaping of the earth and sky would begin. The raising of the sky, Hurakan summoned the winds of heaven, his three divine forms, thunderbolt Huracan, flashing Huracan, and heart of sky swirling together in power. The air trembled with his breath, and the clouds lifted like the wings of mighty birds. He spoke the word, rise, and the sky began to ascend. From the deep mist of the sea, 4 giant trees emerged, the first pillars of the world. Their roots sank into the waters, their branches reached into the void. To the east, the red Ceiba rose, burning with the light of dawn. To the west, the black Ceiba stood, veiled in twilight. To the north, the white Ceiba gleamed like the bones of eternity. To the south, the yellow Ceiba bloomed, heavy with the fruit of life. Together they lifted the sky and held it apart from the earth. Between their branches, the winds found their paths, and the heavens took shape, vast and shining, a dome of endless blue by day and silver by night. Huracan smiled, and lightning flashed across the firmament. Now the heavens shall not fall, he said, and the stars will soon have a place to dwell. The division of the waters, but below. The seas still covered much of the land, swallowing valleys and cliffs alike. Gukamats, in his serpent form, coiled through the depths of the ocean, his scales gleaming like emerald fire. He stirred the currents with his body and sang a song of division, a song that commanded the waters to part. The song flowed through the world. Waters of the east, go your way. Waters of the west, return to your rest. Make room for the bones of the earth, for the breath of stone must rise, and the waters obeyed. The seas retreated, leaving behind plains, valleys, and lakes. The first rivers traced their paths like silver serpents. The first islands rose like the backs of sleeping beasts. And from the wet soil the breath of earth rose, a scent of birth, of beginning. The land was ready, the naming of the mountains. Then the gods gathered upon the highest peak of the newborn world, the mountain that would later be called 7 Caves, 7 Canyons, the heart of the first creation. Huracan lifted his hand toward the horizon and spoke, "Let these places be named, that they may live." And so the mountains were given their names, each carrying the soul of a god. Shikabul, the red peak, born of fire. Kokulha, the storm summit, where lightning sleeps. Sokol, the maker's hill, where creation took breath. Bittel, the shaper's crown, from which the rivers flow. And each name bound the land to its spirit, giving it place and purpose. When the naming was done, the gods looked upon the earth and saw it firm and strong. The sky arched above it like a great mirror, and the waters lay calm beneath the sun. The birth of the heavenly lights, yet the world was dim. No sun had yet crossed the heavens. No moon had yet guided the night. Then Huracan said, "Let there be lights to measure time, to divide day from night, and to mark the path of destiny." From his breath came the stars, countless and eternal, scattered across the velvet sky. From Gukamats's feathers came the shimmer of the moon, soft and silver, guardian of the tide and dream. But the sun was not yet born. For that, the gods waited for it, could only rise when beings capable of praise were made. And so they left the heavens glowing faintly, a promise of what was yet to come, the balance of the world. Now the heavens were high, the earth was wide, and the waters were calm. Day followed night, and night returned to day. The pillars of the world stood firm, and the sky glittered with the first constellations. Huracan spoke, "The world is balanced. Let no wind or flame destroy it before its time." Gukamats replied, "It is good. The order of the earth is written, but without memory, creation fades. We must soon make those who remember." Humankind and Xbalanqué nodded in silence. The weaving of time had begun, threads of destiny that would one day form the story of gods and men. The rest of the gods, when their work was done, the gods withdrew to the heavens. From above, they gazed upon the world below, the shining rivers, the silent mountains, the gentle breath of wind. The first age of the world stood complete, the age of the sky and the sea. But deep within the stillness of the earth, the promise of life waited, the clay, the wood, and the maize that would one day give shape to humankind. And so, the gods slept, the stars kept watch, the rivers sang their endless song, until the time came for the next creation, when the gods would try again to give life to beings who could speak their names. Chapter 3. The First Creation. Men of mud, the heavens were steady, the seas were calm, and the winds had found their paths. The gods stood upon the high mountains of the world they had shaped, gazing upon their work with quiet wonder. Yet, in the stillness of dawn, there was a whisper among them, the voice of longing. Hunahpú, the heart of sky, was the first to speak. His words echoed like distant thunder across the misty peaks. The earth stands firm, and the stars shine bright, but there is no one to name us, no breath of praise, no word of memory. The world is silent. Gukamatz, the feathered serpent, coiled upon a rock of obsidian, his eyes gleaming with divine thought. It is not enough to build the mountains or light the heavens. We must create those who will remember. Let there be beings who can see, who can speak, who can worship. The elder spirits, Mythological and Xbalanqué, nodded in agreement. The grandmother of dawn took her spindle of time and wove threads of light and shadow together, whispering, "Then let us make the flesh of earth, the bones of the world. Let them rise and walk upon the soil we have named." And so began the first creation, the gathering of the sacred earth. The gods descended to the plains, where the waters had only recently retreated. There, they found clay, soft, red, and rich, still glistening with the breath of the sea. Mythological shaped it with her hands, murmuring ancient words. "Let this earth have form," she said. "Let it be the body of our children." Gukamatz breathed the wind of life into the clay, and from the dust, figures began to take shape. Men and women molded in the image of thought, delicate and trembling. Hunahpú watched, lightning in his eyes. "Rise," he commanded. "Walk, speak, and know your makers." At first, the clay beings stirred. Their fingers twitched, their mouths opened. A low moan rose from them like the first sigh of the world. They lifted themselves from the ground, blinking in confusion. They looked upon the trees, the rivers, and the sky. They spoke, but their words were faint murmurs without meaning. The weakness of the clay for a moment, the gods rejoiced. They saw their children standing upright, their forms graceful and soft, but the joy was brief. Rain began to fall, heavy and unrelenting. The clay men trembled beneath it. Their faces melted, their arms sagged, their voices were lost in the storm. Humankind wept. Their flesh cannot hold the breath. Their bones cannot endure the weight of time. Hunahpú's thunder rolled. They are weak. Their bodies crumble like dust. They cannot lift their eyes to the heavens. Gukamatz bowed his head. Their hearts are water, their voices hollow. They cannot praise, they cannot remember. The earth devours what it has given. One by one, the clay beings dissolved. Their forms returned to the mud from which they came, their faces vanishing beneath the rain. Only the faint echo of their attempts to speak lingered in the mist. the first voice of humanity, swallowed by the silence of creation. The council of the gods. When the last of the clay people had fallen, the gods gathered once more. They sat in the dim light of dawn, upon the mountain that touched the clouds. Hunahpú spoke. Our work has failed. We sought to make beings of earth, but the earth has reclaimed them. Xbalanqué answered softly. Perhaps we have shaped them too gently. The world is strong. It needs children of strength. The clay yields too easily. Then Gukamat said, we must try again. Let us not despair. Each failure teaches the next creation. The mud was soft, but the tree stands firm. Perhaps the wood will endure what clay cannot. And so it was decided that a second creation would begin, one of wood, not earth. But before they departed, Xbalanqué, the wise grandfather, spoke in his quiet, ancient tone. Remember, my children, creation must be balanced. To endure, it must have heart as well as form. The body alone cannot praise the gods. The words were carved into the wind, remembered in the breath of the storm. The dissolution. As the gods withdrew, the remnants of the clay beings were scattered across the land. Some hardened in the sun and became stone. Others sank into the soil and turned to dust. The rivers carried their memory to the sea, and there it mixed with the foam of the waves. And it is said that from that day on, the sound of flowing water carries the whisper of those first beings, a faint echo of words never understood, a song of a people who could not speak. In the twilight, Hunahpú looked down upon the earth once more. The world is not yet ready, he said, but the time will come when our children shall rise and endure. Let us dream of them until the dawn. The promise of the next creation. The night grew long, and the stars flickered like embers above the sleeping gods. Deep within the soil, the spirit of creation still stirred, restless, waiting to try again. From the heart of the forests came the murmur of trees. The Seba whispered to the wind, our wood is strong. Our roots hold the sky. Perhaps from us, life may find form that endures. The wind carried this whisper to the heavens, where Gukamat heard it and smiled. Yes, he said softly, from the bones of trees shall the next children rise. And thus ended the first creation, the age of clay, the fragile beginning, washed away by rain and memory. But the world had learned, and the gods were patient. Chapter 4. The Second Creation. Men of Wood. After the fall of the clay-born people, silence returned to the valleys of the world. The rivers flowed again, the mountains stood untouched, and the winds whispered through the ceiba trees. Yet the gods were restless. Hunahpú, the heart of sky, watched from above. His voice rolled like thunder across the heavens. The first ones failed because their bodies were soft. They had no strength, no endurance. The rain devoured them, and their praise was hollow. Gukamat, the feathered serpent, coiled around the pillar of the east, his golden scales shimmering. Then let us fashion beings of wood, firm as the tree, unbending as the forest. Their bones shall not melt, and their forms shall endure. The elder spirits, Xbalanqué and Xbalanqué, bowed their heads. Yes, said Xbalanqué, we will shape them from the trunks of trees and carve their faces from the heart of the forest. Thus began the second creation, the making of the wooden people. The birth of the wooden people. The gods descended once again to the valleys where the ceiba trees grew tall. They cut the trunks and split them into pieces. Xbalanqué and Xbalanqué shaped them with divine tools, carving faces and limbs, hollowing space for breath. Hunahpú whispered the word of life, and the wind entered their nostrils. The figures stirred. They rose tall, straight, and strong. Their joints creaked like bows in the wind. Their skin was pale and dry, their eyes like polished amber. For the first time, men and women stood unbroken under the rain. Hurakan looked upon them and said, "These are good. They do not fall apart. Their bodies endure. Let them walk the earth." And so the wooden people began to move across the land. The silence of the heart at first. The gods rejoiced. The men of wood hunted, built shelters, and filled the valleys with their kind. Their children multiplied, and the sound of their movement echoed through the forests. But something was missing. Hurakan descended upon the wind and spoke to one of them. "You, child of the trees, do you remember your makers?" The wooden man looked up with hollow eyes and said nothing. Gukamats tried again, his voice like the hiss of fire on water. "Do you speak the names of the gods? Do you give thanks for breath, for light, for life?" But the people of wood were silent. Their mouths moved, but their words were empty. A sound without spirit, an echo without soul. They lived, but they did not feel. They spoke, but they did not pray. They looked upon the world, but saw nothing divine. Xbalanqué, sorrowful, turned away. "They have no hearts," she said. "They are hollow as their bodies. They are not alive in spirit." The anger of the gods' Hurakan storm began to gather. "We gave them form, but they give no worship. They forget the sky and the sea. They trample upon the land and do not see its soul. They are shadows without memory." The thunder rumbled in his chest, and the rain began to fall. Not the gentle rain of life, but the wrathful storm of destruction. Gukamats declared, "They must be undone. Let the world remember that without reverence, no creation shall endure." And so, the gods sent judgment upon the wooden people. The uprising of the world, the wooden people fled through the forests, crying out, but the earth itself rose against them. The dogs, once loyal, turned upon their masters and spoke with the voices of judgment. "You gave us no food, though we guarded your homes. Now we shall feast upon you." And they attacked, tearing at the fleshless bodies of their masters. The grindstones, which had labored in silence, cried out in fury. "We were worn and struck each day, yet you gave no thanks. Now we shall grind your bones, as we once ground your corn." The pots and pans shouted from the fires. "You burned us, and we bore it in silence. No more feel our heat and know our pain." Even the trees themselves turned against their children of wood. Their roots rose, their branches lashed, their thorns pierced the flesh of their kin. The land was filled with terror and noise. The wooden people tried to flee, climbing their own creations, but the trees shook them off. They tried to hide in caves, but the stones closed like jaws. They begged the sky for mercy, but the gods were silent. The end of the wooden age at last. The rain ceased. The valleys were silent again, filled only with broken wood and ash. The people of wood were gone. Their voices vanished from the wind. Only a few remnants remained, twisted shapes among the trees, half man, half beast, doomed to wander the forests. It is said that from those remnants came the monkeys, who dwell in trees and chatter in voices that echo faintly the speech of the wooden men. They are the reminder of that failed creation, the memory of beings who lived without heart, without prayer, without soul. The lament of the gods. When the storm had passed, the gods gathered again upon the high mountain. The light of dawn broke through the clouds, and Hurakan spoke with weary voice. "We have made and unmade. The clay was too soft, the wood was too hollow. We must find a new flesh, one that is strong but full of spirit. Gukamets nodded slowly. It is not strength that endures, but reverence. Only those who remember their makers will survive the storm of time. Xbalanqué placed her spindle upon the ground. There is one more material, she whispered. The maize. From corn shall we shape the true people. Xbalanqué lifted his gaze to the horizon. Then let the dawn come once more. The age of wood is ended. The age of maize shall begin. The dawn after destruction, the rain cleared, and sunlight touched the ruined valleys. From the soil, the first stalks of maize began to sprout, green, golden, and full of promise. The gods watched them sway in the breeze, their leaves whispering songs of life. Huracan smiled for the first time in many ages. Yes, he said softly, from this seed will come the ones who remember, the true children of the earth and sky. And so ended the second creation, the age of the wooden people who stood without souls and fell without memory. From their ashes, the promise of humanity was born, and in the quiet between storms, the gods prepared for their final and perfect work. Chapter 5. The Third Creation. The Coming of Corn. After the ruin of the wooden people, the earth lay silent once more. The mountains were still, the forests mourned, and the rivers carried the memory of those who had fallen. Only the gods remained awake, seated upon their thrones of mist and starlight, pondering the mystery of creation. Huracan, the heart of sky, spoke first. His voice was calm now, no longer thundering with wrath. Twice we have made, and twice the world has forgotten. The clay crumbled, the wood was hollow. We sought strength and endurance, but we found neither heart nor faith. What then shall endure the storm of time? The feathered serpent, Gukamets, answered. Perhaps endurance alone is not enough. What lives must also feel. The body must have spirit, and spirit must have memory. Only then will our creation be complete. The elder deities, Xbalanqué and Xbalanqué, sat beside them, weaving threads of fate into the loom of dawn. Their eyes, ancient as the first light, glowed softly. Xbalanqué whispered, the answer lies in the seed, that which dies and rises again. The grain that feeds all life and remembers the warmth of the sun. Let us seek it, the quest for the sacred grain. So the gods descended to the newly awakened world, veiled in mist. They wandered across mountains and valleys, searching for the substance of life. They crossed the rivers where the bones of the wooden people had been carried away, and still they found nothing worthy. Until one day, as the dawn broke, red and gold, they reached the mountain of Paxil and Kyla, where the earth breathed with the scent of fertility. There, beneath the roots of the hills, they heard a whisper, faint but clear. It was the voice of the corn spirit, sleeping deep within the soil. Huracan placed his hand upon the ground, and the mountain trembled. From the cracks in the earth, golden light poured forth like molten sunrise. And there they found it, the maize, white and yellow, shining with the soul of the sun. Gukamets bowed deeply. This is the flesh we have sought, the grain that grows, dies, and returns. It is life everlasting. Xbalanqué gathered the ears of corn in her mantle and ground them upon the sacred stone, mixing them with clear water from the spring of dawn. From this, she made the masa of creation, the dough of the gods, the breath of life embodied, the shaping of humanity upon the mountain's peak. The gods gathered once again. The world was still, as if holding its breath. Huracan said, let us now make beings of maize. Their flesh shall be of golden grain, their blood of water, their hearts of fire. Gukamatz lifted a handful of the sacred dough, molding it with divine care. Smukin and Xbalanqué joined him, shaping for forms the first people. They were strong, yet gentle, radiant, yet humble. The gods gave them names that would echo through time. Balam Quits, the jaguar of the sun. Balamakab, the jaguar of the night. Mahukata, the keeper of memory. Equibalam, the shadowed jaguar. The gods breathed upon them. Rise, children of Maize. Open your eyes and see the world we have made. And for the first time, true humanity awoke. The awakening of the first people, the four men stood tall and bright. Their eyes opened and they saw everything: the mountains, the rivers, the sky, and the stars. Their vision was perfect, reaching to the ends of the earth. They could see the smallest grain of sand and the farthest star. They looked upon the gods and knew their names without being told. They knelt and spoke in clear voices. You have given us life. You have shaped us from the sacred corn. We see you, we know you, and we give you thanks. Huracan was filled with joy. At last, he said, they speak with heart. They praise with memory. They are alive in spirit. But Gukamatz, ever wise, gazed upon them thoughtfully. Their sight is too sharp. They see as we do. If they remain thus, they will be our equals. Zemukain nodded gravely. It is not good for mortals to know all things. The mystery of life must be veiled, lest reverence be lost. And so, while the first people slept, the gods breathed a gentle mist upon their eyes, dimming their vision. When they awoke, the farthest stars were hidden, and they could see only what was near. Now they are as they should be, said Huracan, wise but humble, mortal yet divine in heart, the creation of the women. Yet the four men were lonely. They looked upon the mountains and the valleys, but found no one to share their songs or their dreams. Seeing this, Zemukain took the remaining dough of maize and shaped for women, radiant and graceful. She gave them the breath of the dawn and the fragrance of flowers. Their names were Kahapaluna, Choyamha, Tizi, Unyunha, and Kahahalqui. When the men beheld them, they rejoiced, and together they gave thanks to the gods. Thus, the first people and their companions became the mothers and fathers of humanity, the ancestors of the Maya, the children of corn, the blessing of life. The gods looked upon their creation and saw that it was good. Huracan raised his hand, and the sky filled with golden light. You shall live beneath the sun, which shall now rise and mark the days. You shall plant the corn and harvest it, as we have made you from it. The earth will be your mother, and the sky your father. Honor them, and you will endure. The sun rose for the first time, burning red and alive. The dawn of humanity had come. The people of Maize bowed to the light and wept with joy. Their tears fell upon the soil, and from them grew new stalks of corn, a promise that life would forever renew itself. The covenant of memory before they departed, the gods spoke once more. Remember, children of Maize, you are not gods, but you carry the divine within you. Speak our names with reverence and teach your children to remember. For forgetting is the first death, but memory is the seed of eternity. And with that, the gods ascended to the heavens, leaving humanity beneath the shining sun. The mountains echoed with songs of praise, the rivers danced in the light, and the maize swayed gently in the wind, the living flesh of the new world. Thus ended the third creation, the dawn of humankind, born from the grain of the gods. Chapter 6. The Twins' Legacy. Hunahpú and Xbalanqué. Hunahpú, after the dawn of humanity. the world grew rich with life. Rivers shimmered beneath the newborn sun, and the maize fields sang softly to the wind. The gods looked upon their creation and rested, for their work was complete. But deep beneath the earth, in the shadowed realm of Xibalba, the lords of death stirred. Their kingdom was a place of endless night, filled with traps, trials, and laughter colder than stone. They despised the brightness of the upper world and the songs of humankind. From their thrones of bone, one death and seven death, the twin rulers of Xibalba spoke. The earth is noisy with joy. The people of the maize sing, and the sound offends our silence. Let us remind them that life must always end in death. Thus began a new chapter in the story of gods and men, the tale of the hero twin's father, and how his fate would set the stage for the greatest trial of all, the birth of the ball players. Among the first generations of humanity, there lived two brothers of divine blood, Hunahpú and Xbalanqué. Hunahpú, the eldest sons of creation, descended from the gods themselves. They were wise, strong, and full of life's vigor. But more than anything, they loved the sacred game of poke-to-poke, the ball game of the sun, and the underworld, a contest that mirrored the eternal struggle between light and darkness. From dawn till dusk, they played upon the court they built between the mountains. The sound of the rubber ball echoed across valleys like thunder, a rhythm that seemed to stir the very heavens. But that same sound reached places it should not, the deep caverns of Xibalba. The lords of death heard it and grew furious. Who dares disturb our rest with their noisy sport? Who sends their joy into our shadows? Their messengers, owls with eyes of ember, flew to the surface and spied upon the brothers. They returned to Xibalba, their wings dripping with sunlight. We have seen them, lords, two men who shine like gods. They laugh and play above your heads, unafraid. The lord's laughter was slow and cruel. Then let them play here, where no light can follow. The summons to Xibalba one morning. As the brothers prepared for the day's match, 4 messengers descended from the east, owls bearing obsidian blades and scrolls written in blood. Hunahpú and Xbalanqué, said the first, the lords of Xibalba summon you to a match in their court below. You are invited to test your skill before them. Refusal would dishonor the gods. Hunahpú looked to the sky, thoughtful yet fearless. So be it. The game is sacred, even in darkness. And together, the brothers followed the owls down into the underworld. They walked along a path of bones and mist, crossing rivers of blood and thorns. At last, they reached the 12 lords of Xibalba, seated upon skulls, their eyes glimmering with mockery. Welcome, sons of maize, said one death, his voice like cracking stone. We have heard your game and wish to see it. But first, be our guests, rest in our house. The brothers bowed politely, unaware that the house of darkness was a trap. The trials of the underworld. That night, the Lord sent them to sleep in a chamber with no light and no fire. But Hunahpú and Xbalanqué were clever. They lit a pine torch and placed fireflies upon its tip to fool the lords into thinking they kept the fire alive. Yet the trick failed. In the morning, the lords laughed cruelly. You have deceived us with false light. You shall not leave Xibalba alive. They took the brothers to the ball court and gave them a ball, one made not of rubber, but of a skull. The moment it bounced, it burst into flames, searing the ground. Still, the brothers did not flinch. They played as they always had, graceful and proud. But the lords had laid traps across the field, and in a moment of fury, one death shouted, "Enough! End their game forever." Hunahpú and Xbalanqué were seized. Their hearts were torn from their chests and offered to the gods of Xibalba. Hunahpú's body was buried in the underworld, but Hunahpú's head was hung upon a barren calabash tree, a warning to all who defied the darkness. Yet the tree, once dead, began to bloom. From its branches sprouted fruit that shone like the sun. The lords forbade anyone to touch it, for fear its light would undo their realm. But fate had already been set in motion. The miracle of Xbalanqué. One day, a maiden named Xbalanqué, daughter of a lord of Xibalba, wandered near the sacred tree. She was drawn by its light and fragrance. As she gazed upon it, Hunahpú's spirit spoke from within the fruit. "Do not be afraid, child of shadow. Take my gift, for it carries the promise of renewal." A single drop of essence fell from the fruit onto her hand, and thus she conceived a divine conception that would soon shake the foundations of Xibalba. When her father learned of this miracle, he was enraged. "You have brought shame to the lords, you shall be destroyed." But the owls of judgment, sent to kill her, pitied her innocence and helped her escape to the world above. There, among the maize fields, she gave birth to 2 twin sons, radiant as their father once was, Hunahpú and Xbalanqué. They were born with the blood of gods and men, destined to finish the battle their father could not. The prophecy of the twins. When the gods looked down upon them, they spoke softly among themselves. The sons of Hunahpú carry the light of their father and the cunning of their mother. Through them, the balance shall be restored. The lords of death shall be humbled, and the dawn shall rise once more. Thus began the legend of the hero twins, whose courage and wisdom would challenge the darkness of Xibalba, bring justice to their father's soul, and ensure that life and death would forever dance in harmony. The wind whispered across the maize fields, and the people of the earth still tell this story of Hunahpú, whose head gave fruit to life, of Xbalanqué, who defied the underworld's curse, and of the twins who would soon descend into shadow to play the game of destiny itself. The world awaited their coming. Chapter 7. The Descent of the Hero Twins into Xibalba. The world had turned many times since the death of Hunahpú and Xbalanqué. The people of maize had grown and multiplied beneath the golden sun. Yet, in the depths below, the lords of Xibalba still ruled in silence. But destiny had not forgotten them, for upon the face of the earth 2 young boys grew strong and wise, Hunahpú and Xbalanqué, the sons of the fallen hero Hunahpú and the maiden Xbalanqué, daughter of the underworld. From their earliest days, the twins shone with divine purpose. They played, they laughed, and they learned the ways of life. Yet their hearts were restless, for the whisper of their father's spirit often called to them in dreams. "My sons," the voice murmured through the maize stalks, "remember the game that cost me my life. The lords of Xibalba mock our blood still. When the time is right, you must descend and finish what began before you." The awakening of the twins were unlike other children. They could call upon the wind and speak to the birds. When they struck the earth with their sticks, flowers bloomed. When they whistled, the rivers stirred. But they also loved the sacred ball game, as their father had before them. Every morning, the echo of the rubber ball rang across the mountains, rolling like thunder toward the sky. The people marveled at their skill, but deep below, the sound awakened the fury of the lords of Xibalba once more. It happens again. hissed one death, his hollow eyes flaring. Those who play above us carry the scent of Hunahpú's blood. His sons defy us. 7 deaths struck the ground with his staff, then summoned them, as we did their fathers. Let them descend and taste our shadow. The summons of the underworld. 4 messengers, owls with eyes like obsidian, were sent forth again. They found the twins playing in the sunlit valley and delivered the summons written in smoke and blood. Hunahpú, Xbalanqué, the lords of Xibalba, command your presence. Bring your ball and come below. They await your game. The twins smiled. So the time has come, said Hunahpú. The lords call for the children of the fallen. We will go, not in fear, but in purpose. And Xbalanqué added softly, we will not walk in darkness as victims, but as bringers of light. Before departing, they visited their grandmother, the wise Xbalanqué, who had raised them. Tears filled her eyes. Do not go, she pleaded. Your fathers went into Xibalba and never returned. Xbalanqué knelt beside her. Grandmother, you once taught us that life is a circle. If our father's end lies below, then our beginning must also pass through shadow. Fear not, we will return. With her blessing and the spirit's guidance, the twins began their journey into the underworld. The road to Xibalba, the path was long and filled with peril. They crossed the river of scorpions, where venom hissed upon the stones. They leaped across the river of blood, whose waves whispered the names of the dead. And finally, they forded the river of pus, which reeked of decay and despair. Yet their steps never faltered. At the gate of Xibalba, they encountered 2 silent statues carved of stone. One death had placed them there as guardians, for he wished to trick the living once more. But Xbalanqué, clever as starlight, whispered, statues do not breathe. He threw a seed between them, and it bounced. The echo betrayed the hollowness of the trick. The twins laughed and walked boldly past. Beyond the gate lay the great council hall of Xibalba, where 12 lords sat upon their thrones of bone and jade. Welcome, Hunahpú and Xbalanqué, said one death, his voice dripping with false kindness. We have long awaited you. Come, sit before us. Before the twins stood wooden effigies, placed to deceive them into greeting false kings. But the twins, remembering their father's fate, bowed instead to the empty seats behind the statues. The lords hissed in frustration. You are cunning, said 7 Death, but wit will not save you from the trials of Xibalba, the houses of trial. The twins were led to the first of many tests, the dreaded House of Darkness, where no light was allowed to exist. But Xbalanqué carried with him the secret of the sun. He placed glowing fireflies upon the tips of pine torches, just as his father once had. Yet this time they burned true. The lords watched from afar and gnashed their teeth. Next came the House of Knives, where obsidian blades danced in the air like hungry spirits. The twins fed them offerings of flowers, whispering words of peace, and the blades stilled. Then the House of Cold, where frost bit to the bone. The twins called upon the warmth of the maize fields, and the chill melted into dew. And finally, the House of Jaguars, where hungry beasts waited. Xbalanqué threw them bones from his own hunting pouch, and the beasts slept. The lords of Xibalba were furious, for no mortal had survived these trials. But the twins merely smiled. Perhaps your darkness is not as deep as you believe, said Hunahpú. The ball game of shadows at dawn. The twins stood upon the underworld's ball court, the same where their father had fallen. The lords handed them a ball made of skulls, burning with black fire. Play, said one death, and let fate decide who reigns, life or death. the game began. The twins moved like wind and lightning, striking and dodging with grace. The lords used every deceit, turning the court into pits of flame, sending beasts to attack, bending the laws of time itself. Yet the twins matched each move with cunning. They laughed in the face of death, for they played not for victory alone, but to awaken memory, to show the underworld that the children of Maize could not be extinguished. The secret of the twins. At last, exhausted but unbroken, the twins knelt before the lords. "We have played your game," said Hunahpú, "but our purpose is not yet fulfilled. Tomorrow we shall return for another." As they departed, Xbalanqué whispered, "Let them think they have won. The true game begins when light is born from death." For deep in their hearts, the twins carried a secret plan, one that would bring the downfall of Xibalba and restore their father's spirit to the living world. The night fell heavy and still. The lords of death celebrated what they believed to be their triumph, but above them, the maize leaves swayed in the wind, whispering of hope yet to come. The hero twins had entered the darkness, and soon they would teach it to shine. Chapter 8. The Trials of Death. The twins' sacrifice and resurrection in the darkness of Xibalba. Where no sun had ever shone, the hero twins Hunahpú and Xbalanqué prepared for the final games of destiny. The lords of death sat upon their thrones of bone and obsidian, watching with eyes that gleamed like cold fire. For days and nights, the twins had survived every trap, every riddle, and every cruel deception. Yet the lords had not forgotten vengeance. Beneath their laughter, they plotted a last and merciless trial. The mockery of the lords when dawn came to the underworld. The twins were summoned once more to the ball court. "Come, sons of light," sneered one death. "You have danced well in our darkness, but the end of your game is near." The twins bowed politely, hiding their smiles. They sensed what was to come. The ball they were given was heavy and strange, made not of rubber, but of a serpent coiled upon itself. As the game began, it sprang toward them, hissing with venomous fury. Hunahpú caught it mid-air and flung it back, turning the serpent to dust. The lords shouted in rage, for once again their trick had failed. Then the ground split open, and blades of obsidian rose like teeth from the earth. Still, the twins leaped and turned, playing on. Their grace was divine. Their laughter echoed through the chambers of the dead. But their victory could not last forever. The lords of Xibalba had devised a final deception, one that no mortal could escape. The death of Hunahpú that night, the lords summoned the twins to a feast. "You have earned our respect," said Seven Death, his tone thick with false sweetness. "Come, share in our food and rest from your trials." Upon the tables lay bowls filled with strange offerings, ashes, bones, and the flesh of serpents. The twins pretended to eat, but touched nothing. Then the lords brought forth 2 pipes and 2 cigars. "Play these for us," they said, "but take care not to let them burn out, or you will die." Hunahpú and Xbalanqué knew this was a trap, for the pipes had no reeds, and the cigars could not last the night. Xbalanqué whispered, "Let us use wisdom instead of fire." He placed fireflies within the cigars and bright gems inside the pipes, so that they glowed through the night as though alive. When morning came, the lords found the trick and roared with fury. "Enough," thundered one death. "You mock us as your father once did. His blood feeds the dust, and so shall yours." The twins were seized. Hunahpú was taken to the place of sacrifice, his head severed and set upon the ball court, just as his father's had been. But this time, something different occurred. The head did not wither. Instead, it shone softly, like a small sun, watching, waiting. Xbalanqué wept, not in despair, but in understanding. "The path to life leads through death," he whispered. "This, too, is the game." The trick of the rabbit, though one twin had fallen, the game was not yet lost. The next day, Xbalanqué returned to the court alone. He held the ball in his hands and spoke to his brother's spirit. "Watch me, Hunahpú. Today I will turn their victory into their downfall." The lords of Xibalba jeered. So, the survivor returns. Play, then, against death itself. The game began again. The lords struck fiercely, but Xbalanqué was swift as the wind. When the ball rolled into the shadows, he called out a signal. From the bushes leapt a white rabbit, shining like moonlight. It bounded across the field, confusing the lords, who chased it into the forest, thinking it the bouncing ball. In that moment, Xbalanqué retrieved his brother's head from the goalpost and placed it upon his body. With divine breath, he whispered, "Rise, brother. The game is not over." And Hunahpú stood again, alive, radiant with the light of rebirth. When the lords returned, they found both twins standing together, smiling. Their laughter filled Xibalba, and the lords trembled, sensing that their dominion was slipping away. The twins' voluntary sacrifice, knowing that the time of final reckoning had come. The twins spoke to the lords. "We have played your game, and we have learned its truth. Death is not the end, but a doorway. Allow us to show you its power." They built a great fire in the middle of the court and threw themselves into the flames. The lords roared in triumph as the twins' bodies burned to ash. "At last," cried one death, "their light is gone forever." But 3 days passed, and from the ashes, the river nearby began to shimmer. Fish leaped with golden scales, and 2 of them changed shape before the Lord's eyes. They were the twins, reborn in secret forms, half human, half divine. Now disguised, they wandered through Xibalba, performing miracles. They cut themselves into pieces, and rose again. They set houses aflame and restored them. They killed and revived animals with a touch. Word spread across the underworld, and soon the lords themselves grew curious. "Bring these magicians to us," commanded 7 Death. "Let them show us their tricks." The death of the lords before the assembled court, the twins bowed. "We can perform any wonder," said Xbalanqué. "Even death and resurrection." The lords laughed. "Then show us." First, Hunahpú struck down his brother, cutting him to pieces, and then brought him back whole before their eyes. The lords gasped. "Remarkable," said one Death. "Can you do the same to us?" The twins exchanged a knowing glance. "Of course," said Hunahpú gently. The lords lay down before them, and the twins struck. But this time, there was no resurrection. The rulers of Xibalba were destroyed, their thrones turned to dust, their laughter silenced forever. The underworld trembled, and the walls cracked with light. The balance had been restored, the ascension having fulfilled their destiny. The twins gathered the ashes of their past selves and rose toward the heavens. The people of the earth say that Hunahpú became the sun, blazing eternal across the sky, and Xbalanqué became the moon, silver and serene, following his brother's path forever. Their father, Hunahpú, was reborn as the Maize God, rising from the soil each season, a symbol of life, death, and renewal. Thus, the world was set in order, light and darkness in eternal dance, life born from death, and memory preserved through story. The hero twins' names are still whispered wherever maize grows and rivers flow. For they showed humankind that even in the heart of darkness, life finds its way back to the sun. Chapter 9: The Rebirth of the Maize God. Renewal of the world. When the hero twins ascended into the heavens, one blazing as the sun, the other shining as the moon, their victory over Xibalba echoed through the 9 layers of the underworld and up into the 13 heavens. In the stillness that followed their departure, the earth lay silent. The rivers ceased their song, the winds no longer danced across the fields, and the seeds buried beneath the soil waited in darkness, waiting for the return of their father, the Maize God, Hunahpú. The whisper beneath the earth, deep within the bones of the earth, where roots twist like serpents and time itself sleeps, something stirred, a whisper moved through the soil, soft as breath, ancient as dawn. It was the voice of Hunahpú, the father who had been sacrificed and buried in Xibalba long ago. "My sons have risen," he murmured, his spirit awakening. "Now I, too, must return from his resting place, where his bones had become the seeds of maize." A green shoot broke through the black earth. It rose slowly, bending toward the light of the newly risen sun, the light of his own son, Hunahpú. The Maize God began to take form once more. His limbs were stalks of gold, his hair the silk of corn, and his blood the sweet sap that nourished all life. When he stood tall, the world trembled with rebirth, the journey of resurrection. But resurrection was not without trial. Hunahpú walked through the realms of the dead, carrying with him the scent of soil and the memory of pain. Each step echoed like thunder through the caverns of Xibalba. The shades of the defeated lords whispered from the shadows, "Why do you rise? Your sons destroyed us. Return to your grave." The Maize God answered softly, "From death comes life. You, too, are part of the harvest." And with his words, the spirits dissolved like mist, becoming nourishment for the growing world. He emerged from the underworld upon the sacred mountain of Paxil, where the first grains of maize were said to have been hidden by the gods. There, he bathed in the morning rain and clothed himself in emerald leaves. The earth rejoiced, for the cycle of creation had begun anew. The birth of abundance. When the people of the earth, still shapeless and silent, looked upon him, they saw light spilling from his hands. Wherever he stepped, green life followed. Rivers turned clear, mountains bloomed with maize, and the sky filled with birds whose songs were prayers of renewal. He called out to the 4 corners of the world, "Rise, children of the earth. Feed upon the gift I bring, for maize is the flesh of your being." From his own body, he broke off golden ears of corn and planted them in the soil. The grains shimmered like sunlight, each one a promise of rebirth. Thus, the world regained its rhythm, the balance of death and life, darkness and light, decay and renewal. The hero twins, watching from the heavens, smiled upon their father's work. The sun shone brighter that day, and the moon lingered longer in the sky, as if blessing the reborn world. The feast of the earth, the gods gathered upon the mountaintop to witness the renewal of creation. From the east came Huracan, the heart of the sky, whose thunder had shaped the first dawn. From the west came Epic and Xbalanqué, the ancient grandparents of life, their faces wrinkled with time but glowing with joy. They looked upon Hunahpú and spoke as one. "You have fulfilled the sacred circle. Through your death, the world lives again." Then they scattered the new maize across the lands, naming each color as a blessing: yellow for the sunlight of the east, white for the purity of the north, red for the fire of the west, black for the night of the south. From these 4 sacred colors, humankind would one day be formed, flesh made of maize, spirit born of divine memory. The prophecy of the Maize God when the feast ended. The Maize God stood before the gathering and spoke of what was to come. The world shall not remain forever. From my body shall rise new life, but from pride and forgetfulness shall come darkness again. Yet each time the earth dies, she shall also be reborn, as long as the maize returns. The gods bowed, for his words carried the truth of eternity. The world, they knew, would live in cycles, seasons of growth and decay, of birth and death, forever turning beneath the gaze of the sun and moon. Then Hunahpú laid down his staff and vanished into the fields of maize, becoming one with his creation. His spirit lived in every stalk that swayed in the wind, in every kernel that fed the living. The people who would later rise from maize would honor him as the father of life, and the hero twins as the keepers of light, the renewal of the world. As days passed into years, the mountains sang once more with water, and the forests returned to song. The sky gleamed like jade, and the air smelled of rain and sweetness. The balance between heaven and earth was restored. The hero twins, now sun and moon, traced their eternal paths across the heavens, ensuring that day and night would follow one another in perfect harmony. Each morning, when the sun rose, the people remembered Hunahpú's sacrifice. Each night, when the moon glowed, they remembered Xbalanqué's wisdom. The maize grew tall, and with it, the memory of creation. And so, through the sacrifice of father and sons, the world was renewed. As long as maize stands in the fields, said the elders, the gods shall never truly die. Epilogue of the Dawn. Thus ended the age of trials and began the age of life. The Maya tell that when the first humans were formed from maize dough, the gods whispered into their hearts the stories of the twins and their father, so that they would never forget the path between life and death. And even today, when the wind rustles through the cornfields under the watch of the sun and moon, it carries the ancient refrain, "We are the children of maize. We are the dream of gods reborn." Chapter 10. The creation of humanity. The children of maize, the world, had been renewed. The mountains glistened after the rains, the rivers sang again, and beneath the light of the sun and moon, the spirits of Hunahpú and Xbalanqué, the earth breathed as if newly born. Yet among the gods, there was still a question left unanswered. "The earth is fertile," said Hurricane, heart of sky, "but who shall speak our names? Who shall guard the wisdom of the world and keep memory alive?" The gods gazed upon their creation, the forests, the rivers, the beasts that walked upon 4 legs, and the birds that filled the skies. But none could speak with understanding. None could offer praise or knowledge. The gods longed for humans, beings who could remember, reason, and worship. The council of creation on the sacred mountain of Paxil, the gods gathered once more. The winds circled like serpents of air, carrying their voices through the clouds. Among them stood the ancient ones, Epic and Xbalanqué, the grandmother and grandfather of life. Their eyes held the wisdom of countless ages, and they spoke gently. "We have tried before." The men of mud crumbled in the rain. The men of wood were empty, without hearts. "Let us seek the true substance of life, the one born from the Maize God himself." Then Hunahpú raised his thunderous hand toward the 4 directions. He called upon the mountains and valleys to open their hearts and reveal the sacred grain, the maize of life. The discovery of the sacred maize in the valley of Paxil and Kyala. The winds tore through the earth and revealed a hidden cave. Inside it glowed the treasure of the gods, 4 colors of maize: white, yellow, red, and black, each radiant as starlight. From the east came white maize, symbol of purity. From the west, yellow maize, symbol of sunlight and nourishment. From the north, black maize, symbol of night and mystery. From the south, red maize, symbol of blood and life. The gods ground the maize upon sacred stones and mixed it with the clear water of the mountains. The golden dough shimmered in their hands. "This shall be their flesh," said Xbalanqué. "Their blood shall be the water of the divine river. And from this mixture, the spirit of the Maize God shall awaken once more." The birth of the first people by the dawn's first light. The gods shaped for beings from maize dough. They were neither beasts nor gods, but something new, something sacred. Their names were Belemquits, jaguar of the sun; Balamakab, jaguar of the night; Mahukuta, the wise one; Xbalanqué, jaguar of the wind. When the gods breathed upon them, the 4 opened their eyes, and for the first time in the world, human sight beheld the heavens. They saw everything: the mountains, the stars, the sea, even the gods themselves. Their minds were bright as lightning, their understanding boundless. They knelt and spoke. "We thank you, O creators, O heart of sky and heart of earth. You have given us life, thought, and sight. We know you, and we praise your names." The gods were overjoyed. Their creation had finally succeeded. Beings of flesh and soul, born of maize and divine breath. The limitation of human sight, but soon Hunahpú grew thoughtful. "They see too much," he said. "Their eyes pierce the boundaries of heaven. If they are as wise as we, they will forget humility. We must temper their sight, not as punishment, but as balance." So the gods blew a soft mist across the faces of the 4 humans. Their perfect vision faded. The world became mortal once more. The people could still see the sun, the sky, and the land, but no longer the hidden realms of the gods. Thus, humankind was given wisdom within limits and faith within mystery. The gift of companions, the gods, seeing their creation lonely, shaped companions for the 4 men. From maize and the dust of flowers, they made for women, radiant as dawn, Kahapaluna, wife of Belemquits; Chomaha, wife of Balamakab; Sununaha, wife of Mahukuta; Kakwixaha, wife of Xbalanqué. Together they became the mothers and fathers of all humanity, the Quiche people, the children of the Maize God. Their laughter filled the valleys, and their prayers rose with the smoke of fires. The first dawn of humanity, as the first true humans looked upon the sky, the eastern horizon began to glow. The first sunrise was about to come. The hero twins, now sun and moon, looked down from the heavens and smiled. The time had come for humankind to inherit the earth. When the sun's first light broke across the mountains, the people fell to their knees, their hearts trembling with awe. They sang, "From maize we were made, by the breath of the sky we live, by the warmth of the sun we grow. O creators, we are your memory upon the earth." And thus the first dawn came, the moment when the world and its people were united under divine light. The blessing of the 4 directions before retreating to the heavens. The gods gave humankind one final gift, the sacred order of the world. To the east, they placed the rising sun, symbol of hope. To the west, the setting sun, symbol of rest. To the north, the stars, symbol of memory. To the south, the rains, symbol of renewal. Follow the balance of the four directions, said Huracan. Live in harmony with sky, earth, and spirit, and you shall endure through every age. Then the gods ascended into their celestial realms, leaving humankind to walk upon the earth they had shaped from sacred corn, the song of the first people. In those early days, before pride and forgetting, the people lived in perfect harmony. They tended the fields, sang to the rivers, and built temples of stone to honor the gods. Every harvest was a remembrance of their origin. Each kernel of maize, a fragment of the Maize God's body. They would whisper to the stalks, "We are your children. As you rise from the earth, so shall we. As you fall, so shall we return." And the wind carried their voices to the heavens, where the gods smiled, knowing that life had found its rhythm again. The eternal promise thus, humankind came into being, born from maize, blessed by the gods, and destined to walk between earth and sky. The Popol Vuh tells that even today, the spirit of Hunahpú lives in every field of corn, every harvest fire, and every prayer whispered before dawn. As long as maize grows upon the earth, the memory of creation endures. We are the children of maize, the elders say. We are the dream the gods dreamed when the world was new. Chapter 11. The Ages of Man. Rise and fall of the first civilizations. The dawn had risen upon the new world, and humankind, the children of maize, walked beneath the warmth of the sun and cool light of the moon. They were radiant in spirit and pure of heart, for they still remembered the words of their makers, the heart of sky and the heart of earth. For a time, the world lived in harmony. The rivers flowed with laughter, the mountains glowed like jade, and the maize grew high, whispering songs of life into the wind. But nothing in creation remains unchanged. Even the most perfect dawn must fade toward twilight. The first age, the age of harmony in the beginning. The first people lived close to the gods. They spoke to the winds and understood the language of rain. They built their homes at the feet of sacred mountains, offering the first fruits of their harvest to the spirits who guarded the four directions. At dawn, they sang hymns to Huracan, the heart of sky. At dusk, they lit fires to honor Hunahpú, the Maize God, whose sacrifice had given them life. Their voices rose in unity. We are the dream of the divine, born from the seed of heaven, fed by the blood of the earth. This was the golden age of the maize people, when peace ruled. The fields were green, and wisdom flowed freely among humankind. But in time, as generations passed and memory grew dim, gratitude turned to pride. The second age, the age of forgetting the people, began to believe that the sun rose for them alone. They built temples not for worship, but for power. They carved their own names upon the stones, once meant to honor the gods. The elders who remembered the old prayers were ignored. The young laughed at the stories of creation, saying, "Why thank the maize? We grow it with our own hands." The heart of sky watched from above, silent but sorrowful. Huracan whispered to the clouds, "They forget who they are. They eat the flesh of the Maize God, but no longer remember his gift." And so, the balance began to tremble. Rains grew scarce, rivers dried, and the earth cracked like an old drum. The maize withered under the unblinking sun. Hunger walked among the people, silent and merciless. Yet still, they did not remember. The third age, the age of war. From hunger came envy, and from envy came war. The tribes that once shared the same ancestors turned against one another. They fought over the last fertile valleys, the last flowing rivers, the last sacred corn. The once holy temples became fortresses. The songs of praise were replaced by the clang of stone weapons. The world belongs to the strongest, they cried, not to the gods, but to us. Blood soaked the soil, and the gods turned their faces away. Huracan's voice thundered across the heavens. Did I not give them light? Did I not give them life? Yet they destroy what they were meant to protect. He called upon the storms, the winds, and the fires. Lightning split the skies. Mountains roared and rivers rose in anger. Civilizations that once gleamed like jade were swallowed by forests and buried in silence. Thus ended the age of war, leaving behind only ruins and echoes. The fourth age, the age of reflection, when the storms ceased and silence returned. A few survivors wandered across the empty lands. They were thin, weary, and humbled by loss. Among them were elders who still remembered the stories of the hero twins, of the Maize God's sacrifice, of the gods who dreamed the world into being. They gathered around small fires at night and spoke softly, for even their voices carried the weight of ancient sorrow. We forgot the maize, they said. We forgot the gods, and so the world forgot us. They taught their children once more to honor the cycles of nature. The rains, the winds, the moons return. They built altars of stone and offered the first grains of every harvest. And from these humble fires, wisdom returned. The fifth age, the age of renewal. Many ages passed. The earth healed itself with time. Forests grew where cities had fallen. The rivers returned, singing new songs through ancient valleys. In a distant land, a new people rose, descendants of those who had remembered. They carried with them the sacred words of the Popol Vuh, the book of beginnings and endings, the memory of the Maize God and his sons, the hero twins. They built their temples not for conquest, but for the heavens, aligned to the stars, to the solstice, to the breath of the universe. Each year, when the maize ripened, they held a great festival. They danced beneath the rising sun, painted in gold and crimson, chanting, "We are the children of maize. We are born, we die, and we rise again." As the gods have done before us, the gods looked down and smiled, for humankind had finally remembered the prophecy of the ages. As the night fell upon the renewed world, the voice of Xbalanqué, the grandmother of creation, was heard once more, echoing through the wind. Know this, my children, the world will always move in circles, from creation to forgetting, from pride to ruin, from ruin to remembrance. You are the dream of the gods, and the gods are the dream within you. The people bowed their heads and placed kernels of maize into the fire, letting their fragrance rise toward the stars, a promise that the bond between heaven and earth would never again be broken. The dawn after ages, when the next morning came, the sun rose brighter than ever before. It casts golden light upon temples, fields, and rivers, upon a world that had learned through its own sorrow the meaning of balance. The maize stood tall once again, and within every ear of corn, the spirit of the Maize God whispered softly, "Remember, and the world shall live." And so the ages of man continued, not perfect, but eternal, guided by memory, humility, and the sacred rhythm of the earth. Chapter 12. The Eternal Cycle. The Legacy of the Popol Vuh at the Edge of Dawn. When the stars still shimmered and the wind carried the scent of rain, the world stood in balance once more. The rivers murmured to the mountains. The maize bowed under the golden light, and humankind, born from the corn and the breath of the gods, walked the earth as children of both heaven and soil. It was an age of remembrance, an age when prayers were not forgotten, and every sunrise was a hymn to the creators Huracan, Gukamets, Expiacock, Zimucain, and the Maize God, Hunahpú, who had died so that life might endure. The memory of the gods in the cities of stone and jade. The people built temples not to boast of power, but to honor the sky. They carved upon their walls the stories of the beginning, how the world rose from the void, how the gods shaped man from maize, and how the hero twins brought light to both the heavens and the underworld. Every carving, every song, was a memory preserved in time. It was said that as long as the stories were spoken, the gods would never fade. Elders would gather the young at dusk and whisper, "Listen, children of maize, you were born from the seed of sacrifice. The gods are not gone. They live in your blood, your breath, your harvest." And so the sacred memory flowed from generation to generation, like the rivers that fed the heart of the earth. The sacred fire at the heart of each city burned a sacred flame, the fire of the four directions. It was kept alive by priests and dreamers, its smoke curling upward in spirals, carrying prayers into the night. When storms came, they shielded it with their cloaks. When droughts struck, they fed it with incense and maize. It was more than fire, it was the breath of the world. Its light represented the eternal balance between the gods and humankind, between creation and destruction, between remembering and forgetting. As long as this fire burns, the priests would say, so too does the covenant between earth and sky. The circle of time, the Maya, watched the heavens with devotion. They saw that the stars moved not in lines, but in circles. The moon waxed and waned. The seasons came and went. Even life and death were but two halves of a turning wheel. From this truth was born their sacred calendar, the Tesocan, a measure not just of days, but of destiny. Each day carried the essence of a god, each cycle the echo of creation's first breath. They understood that time was alive, breathing, pulsing, eternal. No ending was truly an end. Each death was a seed. The gods planted time as they planted maize. The elders said, and we are its harvest. The prophecy of the fifth sun as ages passed. The wise among the people read the stars and whispered of what was to come. One day they said, the world shall darken again. The sun shall fall and the moon shall hide. But fear not, for this too is the turning of the wheel. When the Maize God rises once more, light shall return and a new dawn shall begin. And so they prepared not for doom, but for renewal. For they knew the truth that the gods had woven into the heart of all things, that creation and destruction are lovers, that death is the soil in which life is born, the echo of the hero twins. On nights when the moon hung low and the stars shimmered like sacred corn, the people said they could still hear the laughter of Hunahpú and Xbalanqué echoing across the heavens. Children would point to the sky and ask, are those the gods who brought us light? And the elders would smile. Yes, one is the sun, the other the moon. They watch us still, as they once watched their father rise from the earth. Thus the hero twins lived on, not as gods to be feared, but as symbols of courage, wisdom, and the triumph of light over darkness. Every game of ball played in the village courts was more than sport. It was a ritual reenactment of their journey through Xibalba, a reminder that even in the depths of death, victory, and rebirth, await the voice of the maize. In the fields, when the wind blew through the tall green stalks, the people swore they heard the voice of the Maize God whispering, "Children of my body," it said, "remember who you are. I am in the seed you plant, in the meal you share, in the dust that will one day cradle your bones. You live because I dreamed you into being, and I live because you remember." They would bow their heads in reverence, for they knew that life and death were not enemies, but two faces of the same eternal maize, the legacy of the Popol Vuh. And so, through centuries and empires, through flood and fire, the story endured, carved in stone, sung in the language of the wind, carried by memory even when words were forbidden. When kingdoms fell and jungles swallowed their cities, the story lived on, hidden in the hearts of those who remembered. It became more than myth. It became the breath of identity, the soul of a people, the mirror of all creation. To forget the Popol Vuh, they said, is to forget the path between the stars and the soil, the eternal cycle. At last, the story returns to where it began, to silence, to darkness, to the breath before creation. But within that silence, there is a heartbeat. Within that darkness, a spark. The gods still dream, the maize still grows, the sun still rises, and humankind still walks the line between the mortal and the divine, forever bound to the eternal cycle of remembrance. We are the children of maize, whispers the wind, the dream of gods that never ends. Epilogue, the Book of Dawn. Thus ends the Epic of the Popol Vuh. But its ending is only another beginning. For as long as someone speaks these words, as long as maize rises each season, as long as the sun and moon share the sky, the story lives. It is the eternal promise of creation, that the world may fall, but it will always rise again. The gods are memory, and memory is life.